You're a slave. I said what I said. But now it's up to you. Do you continue to be a slave, or do you start the journey of deconstructing that financial slavery consciousness? Because that's what I'm here for. And that's what you're going to keep hearing from me, is how to deconstruct that financial slavery consciousness.
This is Leah Steele. Welcome to the Wealth Witch podcast. Just a few years ago, I experienced complete financial collapse. We lost a business, our home, and a car. My husband was selling plasma to pay for diapers and formula. I was living a life I hated, and I was miserable. It was the lowest part of my life. It ended up being my biggest blessing. Just a few short years later, I've designed the life of my dreams. I live a life of luxury in beautiful Bali, Indonesia, travel the world, and spend my days helping others manifest wealth and abundance. Living a purpose-led life changed everything for me. This podcast is about my journey, my top tips and tools for manifestation, and interviews with all the amazing, world-changing, inspiring people I meet along the way. Welcome to my world.
Hello, Wealth Witch podcast listeners. It's time for another episode of the Wealth Witch podcast. So today, I want to talk about the term that the world doesn't want to talk about, slavery. So you may have seen recently that I was featured in Forbes Magazine, which was an incredible honor and really a huge step in getting this message out into the world. You know, this is a mainstream publication publishing a message about deconstructing wealth programming. But in the interview, I talked about financial slavery consciousness. And if you've been following this podcast for any amount of time, you know that that is a very popular topic of conversation with me, because I truly believe that part of my divine mission work on this planet is to deconstruct financial slavery consciousness. So the phrase financial slavery consciousness was left out of the Forbes article, and it was changed to something entirely different. The message still, I think, gets across, and I'm really just over the moon thrilled that this message is reaching more people, the masses, outside of my little community that I've built on Facebook and on Instagram and here with this podcast. I don't know how little you are, actually. I think we're edging up somewhere around 100,000 people, which is incredible. But it still wasn't the actual message. And it really got me to thinking about why people don't want to talk about slavery. It's this dirty word that we seem to just not want to even say. So I want to talk today on this podcast about financial slavery consciousness and what it is. To me, financial slavery consciousness is the programming and conditioning that is enforced through fear and manipulation, generation after generation, that keeps the collective operating as compliant commodities to serve a greater global financial agenda. Now, I'm going to say this to you one more time, because this is my definition of financial slavery consciousness, and I don't want you to mistake this for me meaning anything but what I'm saying. Like the title of this podcast, you're a slave. I said what I said. So I'm going to say what I said one more time so that you fully understand and it fully lands for you what I mean by financial slavery consciousness. So financial slavery consciousness is the programming and conditioning that is enforced through fear and manipulation, generation after generation, that keeps the collective operating as compliant commodities to serve a greater global financial agenda. And that greater global financial agenda serves an elite group of people that I refer to as the global financial elite. So that's what I mean when I mean financial slavery consciousness. And when I say that you're a slave, I mean that you're a slave. I mean that from the moment you are born into this world, you are taught to believe that life is a sequential process, that you are taught that you are to behave a specific way so that you can live a life that is rewarding and fulfilling, And we are programmed and conditioned to believe that if we don't live up to what we are taught, programmed and conditioned, that sequential process should be, that we are then ostracized from our community. So we're told to study hard, get good grades, go to university, even if that means taking on student loans, and hopefully, especially from the perspective of the global financial elite, if that means taking on student loans, because they really want us paying interest to our financial institutions and organizations. So they want us going to university, they want us getting advanced degrees, and they want us leveraging the financial system to do that. They want us going into debt. We go to university so that we can get out and get a good job, one that will ultimately see us working a 40-hour plus work week, and then going home emotionally drained and tired and irritable and physically exhausted so that we can't take care of ourselves. And we're conditioned to be grateful for that 9-to-5 existence. We're conditioned to be grateful for living a life where we are literally just waking up, living for the weekend. It's a prison. They have literally created a prison of work so that you can be leveraged as a working asset that belongs to your country, the country that you live in. So in the United States, for example, we're issued birth certificates and social security cards that are then leveraged by our financial institutions and organizations, particularly our government institutions and organizations, to secure funding and loans. So they want us leveraged. They want us in debt. They want us to work hard and support the system so that they can be in control of the planetary global resources. And we go along with this because we don't know that there's another way. Because not only have we been programmed and conditioned to behave this way, but our parents were programmed and conditioned to behave that way. And our parents' parents were programmed and conditioned to believe that way. And our parents' parents' parents were programmed and conditioned to believe that way. And so not only is this happening to us from the time we take our first breath on this planet, but we are carrying ancestral DNA memory of this programming and conditioning to be and perform and act like a compliant commodity. We are, I think it's scientifically proven at this point that we carry up to 7 generations of ancestral DNA memory. I believe it's much more than that. I think that's all that science has proven up until this point. But 7 generations of programming around operating as a compliant commodity to serve a greater financial agenda. So no wonder you don't see this. No wonder you don't understand. No wonder you can't comprehend the immense amount of manipulation that takes place to keep us in line, to keep us operating in a way that we can be leveraged. So that elite group of people, they control our governments. They control our financial institutions and our regulatory agencies. They have their hands in every single thing in our lives, from our food to our water to our financial opportunities. They literally are medicine, big pharma, right? So it is in their highest and best interest that we stay exhausted, emotionally stressed, and physically ill. Because when we are those things, one, we're easier to control and manipulate. When we are emotionally charged, we're easier to control and manipulate. When we're exhausted, we're easier to control and manipulate. But as long as they keep us working and keep us sick, then we also buy their medicines. And that's a whole other way that they control us. So they're giving us poisoned food so that we will become sick, so that we will purchase their medicine, so that we can continue on not waking up, not seeing the writing on the wall, not seeing that we're being controlled and manipulated, not seeing that we're being divided intentionally. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Wealth Witch podcast. I wanted to take a quick break to talk to you about an amazing offer I have to work with me like my high-end clients do for a fraction of the investment. If there's anything that the last several months of chaos and change has showed us, it's that our perceptions of what is safe, stable, and secure is anything but. You are your guarantee. You are the key to unlocking and calling in the wealth that you desire. If you don't already know, I'm all about belief and intention, and for me, deciding is the most important action you can take. So I don't need to convince you. You'll either resonate with this or not. The only prerequisite that you need to have is a desire to change your current financial reality. This mastermind I'm about to tell you about is about empowering you to take back control of your financial destiny and take action towards creating the life that you deeply desire. The Wealth Alchemy Mastermind is hosted via the Telegram app, and I've set it up in a way that it's accessible. This is an incredible opportunity to work with me in this mastermind at a special pre-launch rate of $44 a month. Yes, you heard that right. Just $44 a month to work with me at the same level that some of my high-end clients do. So what do you get? Weekly exclusive content and training, a monthly Zoom coaching call, a monthly Q&A session, wealth paradigm downloads, wealth activations, and a mastermind chat full of like-minded community. You aren't doing this mastermind for the content. You're doing it for the transmissions, period. You will be activated with abundance just by being in this container. But you have to act fast. The pre-launch offer is only available for a limited time, so click the link in the description of the podcast and sign up now. I'd love for you to join me, so do the thing. Now back to the podcast. You are a slave. You live inside a system of slavery, and this is something that we don't want to talk about. We want to turn our heads away from it and pretend that it doesn't exist because the reality of it is so atrocious. To believe that people would actually treat other human beings this way is disgusting to us. And we can't begin to comprehend that an entire collective on a planet is being controlled and manipulated this way to serve an elite group of people. But it's the reality of what's happening. It's the reality of what's happening. And we don't want to talk about it, and we don't want to look at it, and we don't want to say words like slavery because what happens? Well, then all of a sudden we're in a race war, right? We're in a dialogue and a conversation where white is attacking black and nobody can be right because we're playing exactly into the hand that they've dealt us. They want us divided. They want us entering into those conversations about race wars and diversity and human and civil rights, when the fact of the matter is that they stripped us of all of that long, long ago. And it doesn't matter what color our skin is. It doesn't matter if we are brown or white or black or purple or green. They really could give zero fucks what color your skin is, just like they don't care what political party you are in the United States. The global financial elite do not have a political party. They are not Republicans and they are not Democrats. That is used as a tactic to divide us, to keep us fighting amongst each other so that we cannot see the control and manipulation that is running our day-to-day lives. And we don't want to talk about any kind of slavery. We certainly don't want to talk about the sex slavery that exists on this planet. We certainly don't want to talk about the amount of men, women, children, primarily women and children, right? But men, women, and children that are being sold into sex slavery on a day-to-day basis in every town America. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to look at that. As human beings, we would rather turn a blind eye and pretend something doesn't exist than stand up for it, make a stand for each other. And that is because we have been taught not to trust each other. We've been programmed and conditioned to not trust each other. Because when we don't trust each other, we can't band together. There are so many more of us than there are them. There are so many more of us than there are them. And if we came together, they would be overthrown so quickly. So they can't allow that to happen. So they have to keep us divided. So the first step here, right, to break out of this, to break free from these chains of slavery, to begin to be able to see the programming and the manipulation, we have to stay in a constant state of curiosity. We have to question everything, especially those things that we believed have always been true. And I have said this before and I will say it again, but your biggest weapon against the global financial agenda and the global financial elite is your curiosity, is you staying in a constant state of questioning everything that you are told to be true. And it's particularly important that you question the things that have been handed down to you generation after generation after generation, particularly those things that your family gets really, really charged about that seem to be rooted in family values, morality, what's good, what's right, what's bad, what's wrong, what's evil. Those are the things that you really need to begin to question. And you need to ask yourself when it comes to every single one of those things, if this was a lie, if this thing that I've been told my whole entire life, that I believe my whole entire life was a lie, who would benefit from telling me that lie? And if the person that would benefit from you being told that lie is a government institution or a financial institution or somebody who stands to gain financially from you believing that thing, it's likely a lie. It's likely orchestrated by the global financial elite to keep you controlled, to keep you operating as a compliant commodity. It's not comfortable. It's really not comfortable looking at this stuff. And it can create divisions in our family units for a time. We'll lose friends over it. People that have been in our life, our whole entire life, will begin to look at us like we're crazy. And here's the other piece of that. For those people that aren't waking up, we have to hold a compassion for them because they cannot see it. Just because you can see it doesn't mean that they can see it. And the only thing I believe that we can do is just hold and have compassion and continue our journey of self-discovery, continue our journey of waking up, continue our journey of being able to see through the matrix and see all of these ways that we're being controlled and manipulated. And talking to other people about it, and the ones that are receptive, helping them on their journey, but not banging our heads into a wall with our family members or our close friends that can't see it right now. Because it's a waste of our time, it's a waste of their time, it's a waste of your very, very precious energy. And those that can't see right now, they can't see. They're not going to understand. There's no amount of explaining that you can do because they're literally still under the spell. Begin to question everything, especially those things that divide us, especially those things that are designed to divide us. This is, for me, the big ones, the ones that stand out to me the strongest are political parties, pitting race against race, bringing in the whole LGBTQ side of things, human rights and civil rights, right? Those things. We are manipulated by the media on a daily basis. And I am not stating or saying here in any way, shape, or form that those communities have not been marginalized, that offenses, horrible, horrible offenses have not happened to those populations of people. As many of you know that are listening, I am a woman of color. I'm a multiracial woman. I have Black ancestry, I have Native American ancestry, and a whole host of European ancestry as well. But it's not to marginalize what those populations have been through. It's just to say that today it is very successfully being used to control, manipulate, and divide us. Do not trust anything that you see in the media. I mean, that should just be a given at this point. And if you're listening to this podcast, I can't imagine that you're still watching the news and buying what you're being served, because I don't think you would have found this podcast in the first place. The media is the weapon. And the media has been the weapon for quite some time. And the media will continue to be the weapon because it is the thing that they can use that is now at our fingertips with our smartphones and our iPads, that it's a real-time means of manipulation. It's a real-time means of emotionally charging us to want to stand up and take up arms for the things that we believe are right and true. And so for me, one of these tools of staying in a place of curiosity and questioning everything includes asking yourself, when these division tactics are put into play in our communities, it's really considering whether the other person that's on the other side of the argument, whether their viewpoint is actually causing harm to you in that moment. Not what happened to your ancestors, not what happened to your great-grandparents, not what happened to your neighbor down the street. But is the other person's viewpoint actually causing harm to you in this moment? This is one of the hardest things that you're ever going to do. You have to bring it back to your actual experiences. Are you being harmed by that person's beliefs? If not, keep the focus on yourself and keep it moving. And I know that's really hard because as human beings, we want to take up arms for everybody. We want to, be the heroes. We have crazy savior complexes, and we have equally as crazy martyrdom complexes. And so we get a payoff from being the savior, and we get a payoff from being the martyr. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the only people that we are harming is ourselves, because we're continuing to stay stuck and entrenched inside this program of control and manipulation. Stay in integrity with yourself. Question why you need to be divided from other human beings, why you need to be divided from other parts of the collective simply because they have a different opinion than you do. This is the really hard work, right? This is the really difficult work of deconstructing that programming that's been handed down to you for generations. So my middle son has all of my genetic ancestry, and his biological father is Black. And when my husband, who is a primarily Scottish and Irish man, and I started having race conversations with him because we were living in the United States, one of the things that we really encouraged him to do is this thing that I just talked to you about. That instead of getting caught up in what the media was trying to pitch and what the collective consciousness was energetically carrying in its frequency and in its vibration, was for him to, when it came to issues of race, continue to bring it back to his personal experiences. Was he personally experiencing racism? Was he personally being harmed by another person's words? And I believe that this has served him really well as he's moved through his teenage years. Now, this isn't a popular opinion, and it's not a popular belief. And this is where I do come under fire from other women of color or BIPOC organizations, because at this point, I believe that we have to begin to look at what is happening today. And we have to take it back to our own personal experiences. Have I experienced racism in my life? Absolutely, I have. But am I also a very privileged individual? Of course I am. I am a light-skinned, passing woman of color. I am a multidimensional being as well. And I am also a human being that sees that slavery didn't end in the United States all those years ago when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. Slavery still exists today. It exists regardless of your caste, color, skin color, ancestry, sexual preference, whether you were born a man or a woman. We are all living in chains. We are all living in chains, and it is time to break free from those. And so for me, I truly believe that we empower ourselves by questioning everything. We empower ourselves by staying in integrity with our own personal experience. We empower ourselves by deciding that we are no longer willing to be compliant commodities, that we are no longer willing to do things simply because we've always been told that we should do them. And by not buying hook, line, and sinker what the media is selling. You're a slave. I said what I said. But now it's up to you. Do you continue to be a slave, or do you start the journey of deconstructing that financial slavery consciousness? because that's what I'm here for. And that's what you're going to keep hearing from me, is how to deconstruct that financial slavery consciousness. I'm going to be sharing with you tools and hacks and interviews with people who inspire me. That's what the rest of 2021 has in store for the Wealth Witch podcast. So thank you for listening. It's such a pleasure to be able to have this platform to talk to you about this message. If you haven't read the Forbes article, we will put the link in the description of the podcast. Please go check it out. Super interested to hear what you think. Send us an email at media@theleahsteele.com. Let us know if you liked the article. Let us know if there's something that you would really love to hear me riff on this podcast. I'm always open to taking suggestions and bringing them here to talk to you about the things that are really, really pertinent to you and the things that you want to hear about. So until next time, please remember that it is your divine birthright to be wealthy in all areas of your life. And you are so worthy and you are so deserving. That's a wrap. Thank you for joining me. Remember, wealth is a mindset and you are the most powerful creator in your reality. Until next time, this is Leah Steele, the Wealth Witch, signing off.